All right, so the keto diet for non-responders. Let me give you a quick background on why I'm doing this talk and this talk series. About 3 years ago, I was introduced to a ketogenic diet. I had heard of it actually way back in medical school, and it was kind of a mysterious, unknown type of therapeutic diet. And the way I was introduced to the diet is that it was with the availability of the ketone supplements that were coming out. So being who I am, I was investigating those and determining their usefulness clinically. And since then, so that was 3 years ago, now we have the onset of just unbelievable amount of popularity with the ketogenic diet, aka keto diet. And there are books coming out, there's the Facebook groups, there's the Oprah show and Good Morning America, whatever the latest Dr. Oz, everyone's featuring it because it's the new trendy diet. So I think that's, I guess, good and bad. Obviously, awareness and popularity isn't necessarily a bad thing to get people introduced to something that might be helpful for them. But as always happens with fad diets, is there's a lot of people putting out information that isn't quite accurate, and it is not a kind of a diet that is one size fits all. This has been an ongoing problem with just about every diet that's ever come out, is that human beings are as diverse as different species of animals almost in terms of dietary needs. And so it's very difficult to say that this diet is going to be effective for every single person, you know, one single kind of a diet. Now, I believe the ketogenic diet is different in that it can be tailored to fit everyone. It's just a matter of finding the right balance. But the key concepts are going to be about the same. So I'm going to cover, I guess, three main topics about this. So first, I want to go over the basics of the ketogenic diet. I imagine that might be a lot of repeat or a review for many of you. Hopefully, if you've embarked on the keto diet already, you've sought out a good reference for that. And I'll go through the basics. Then I'm going to talk about how to really accelerate the effectiveness of a ketogenic diet by using time-restricted eating. That is, I kind of don't like that term because it sounds restrictive, but it's also known under different names such as intermittent fasting. But once you learn about why the ketogenic diet does what it does, you'll understand, one, how easy it is to do time-restricted eating, and then also how effective that is to add to that, adding it to the diet. And then thirdly, I'll go into some of the troubleshooting for why it's not working, because that is the case for many people. Many people will embark on it, and I guess there's three main responders. You've got the rapid responders. They go on a ketogenic diet and suddenly they're losing weight, and they're feeling better, stronger. And then you've got those who see an initial result, and then it levels off and plateaus. And then third group of people are those that it doesn't work at all right off the bat. So let's go over the basics of the diet real quick to summarize before we launch into maybe why it's not working. The diet, let me say what it's not. The ketogenic diet is not a high-protein diet. That should be obvious. That should be obvious for one very important reason. First off, if you're doing a keto diet or want to do a keto diet, you need to understand what the word keto means. I wish I could have people in front of me and ask for a show of hands, but if I virtually show of hands, have you raise your hand if you know what keto means, or ketone, or ketogenic. Keto is short for ketone, or ketones, or ketone bodies. These are molecules that are used by the body for energy in our energy engines of the cells. Those are the mitochondria. Just like in your car, you have an engine that burns fuel, or if it's an electric, it runs on electricity. The ketones are one form of fuel that are fed into the engines of our body. The ketone, the word ketone refers to the molecule chemistry of that molecule. They're ketones, ketone body. It has to do with the structure of that molecule. It is derived from fat. Okay, fat as a food nutrient, fat as what we have stored in our bodies. It is the net fuel source from fats, are these ketone bodies. And so keto diet has nothing to do with protein. It's not sourced from carbohydrates. It's very much focused on fats. So that's probably the key point here that I would make, is that the ketogenic diet requires that you're eating adequate and the right sources and types of fats. Otherwise, you're not making ketones. If you're not producing ketones, you're not doing a keto diet. Many people have equated the keto diet to a high protein diet. It's just a new name for an old diet known as the Zone or the Atkins diet. Okay, those were high protein, low carb diets. That's what the focus became. This is very, very different. So the reason that is it has to do with physiology. If you are consuming an amount of protein and or carbohydrates that exceeds a certain threshold, you will burn your energy in the form of glucose from those carbohydrates and proteins. You will burn carbs and proteins as your fuel source rather than the fats and ketones. So if that threshold is above a certain amount, and it's different for each person, but roughly speaking, if your carbohydrates are above 5% or possibly 10, so if you're getting 15, 20, 25% of your calories from carbs, you will not produce ketones, at least not very efficiently and very often. And same with protein. If your protein intake is above, again, some are sensitive, so it could be as low as 10%. You might be able to get away with up to 20%, but you're seeing a minority of your calories from that. Protein is an important nutrient, but it needs to be kept moderate to low. And the reason that is that proteins, like carbohydrates, can be converted to glucose. Whenever the body sees enough of the protein and carbohydrates coming in to supply glucose, and that is above those percentages, you will shut down ketosis. Okay, you're not going to burn fat as long as you're consuming higher amounts of proteins and carbohydrates. All right, so hopefully that's pretty clear. Keto diet is a fat diet. It is a high-fat diet. If you're eating a high-fat diet, you're going to be too full to consume excess protein and carbs. And so it's an important distinction. What I recommend is one that you identify, obviously, what some sample diets look like. I'll go through them briefly and actually have a couple of graphics that I will show you. They are not necessarily going to be, let's see if the screen share is going to work. Application window. Here we go. All right, so you should be able to see this on your screen. I won't go through all this. It's just a sample diet here, a food list. But at the top, I've got these percentages. So 80% fats, 15% protein, 5% carbs. If you are wanting to lose fat weight off of your body, that is a good starting point. Those percentages may need to be adjusted slightly depending on the individual. You also don't necessarily need to eat every single meal to exactly fit those percentages, but roughly 80% calories from fat, 15% from protein, and 5% carbohydrates. If you are someone who is actually trying to gain muscle weight, or if you're an athlete, those percentages are slightly more lenient for the carbs and proteins, but not by much. So if you're a bodybuilder, protein may be a little bit higher. If you are an endurance athlete or even a sprinter, a little bit more carbohydrate leading up to those events and possibly during longer duration. So foods, and let me talk about, I guess, so number one of the most common reasons for people not getting in having success with a ketogenic diet is that they don't understand what it is, and their diet does not match that diet correctly enough. And so a couple of common mistakes is that they begin to go grain-free, they cut out sugar, maybe cut out fruit, but they're now eating a lot of junk protein, shakes, and fried foods, and bacon, and poor quality meats, and poultry, and eggs. Those are all good foods, but some of them are much higher in protein than fat, and you need to be picking high quality, high fat varieties. So things like salmon, eggs cooked in butter or coconut oil. You want the fattier cuts of meat. And, so if you're just having, turkey breast, and you're doing a lot of dairy and cheese, which, by the way, most of it is high protein, then you're very easily going to drive your protein up too high. So the other thing is to really be able to get to the state of ketosis effectively, you need to get over your fear of adding more fats to your foods. So as an example, let me come back to, what did I do here? I'm like a complete amateur. There we go. I think we're back to the screen here. Let's see. Yes, no. Okay, back. So, for instance, here's my lunch. I'm not partaken in that yet, but it is mixed greens at the bottom. This is not the most beautiful presentation, but it was what I could transport. So dumped pre-washed spring mixed greens. I've got avocado and cheese, and it's the, what have I got there? High-fat Gouda. I have a couple slices of lean turkey breast, by the way, but I'll explain why I'm doing that. I did throw a couple of carrots in, and of course I've got balsamic and olive oil dumped on there as well, salt and pepper. So when I dump that dressing on there, which is oils mostly, you want to have a fair amount of the oil in there. You don't want a sugar, of course, a sugar salad dressing, but you're very liberal with it. The carrots, of course, people are like, well, that's a carbohydrate. Yeah, but in balance, most vegetables have high amounts of fiber. And so really this diet is a high-fat, high-vegetable diet. Why do we want vegetables? Well, they are the carrier of the vitamins and minerals we need. They're the detoxifiers. They are the fiber-containing foods that maintain good bowel health and allow us to eliminate toxins through the bowel properly. And they fill us up. And so you need to both, so cooked and raw, tons and tons of vegetables, at least with every meal. And then lean turkey. So why do I have lean turkey? Well, one is about the quality and convenience that I can buy. I'm able to find an organic, free-range, no additives turkey breast. If they made a dark meat turkey, sliced turkey, I would get that instead. But I just complement it with the extra added oil that's in there and the high-fat cheese. What else? Oh, avocado, of course. That's a no-brainer. Avocado is a great food nutritionally and because of the high-fat content in there. So let me jump into, so one other mistake, an important step is kind of two parts. One is that when starting the diet, you obviously need to know what to eat, when to eat, and how to eat it, and prepare and all that. So it takes some time, maybe educate yourself, get some meal plans. I do have some available, which, by the way, I'll be, go back to screen share here. I will make my, to bring it up here, I have the Keto Plan available, which if you'd like to message me and like to get that, I'll bring this up on screen right now. So hopefully you can all see that. But anyway, if you can't, I can forward it to you. Where, oh, here we go. Trying to make this fill the screen. So what this is it's just a guide for timing. All right. So you get up. This keto plan that I put together has you kind of do a first week scenario and a second week scenario to get it kind of launched. And I'll talk about this detox shake. This is an option if you wanted to do detox included with it. But the reason I wanted to show you this, let's look at week 2, because this is a little more typical to launching the diet. The idea of shrinking your window of time to eat during the day and use what's called intermittent fasting is a key to the diet. If you're not getting to that point, if you're eating on schedule, if you're just to get up and have breakfast and then you have your lunch and then you have your dinner and even some snacks in between, you should not be eating 3, 4, 5, 6 meals a day. Otherwise, you are likely not in ketosis. When you are in nutritional ketosis, you should feel quite satisfied to go longer and to skip meals now and then, especially to even start eating later in the morning. So the way I do this is I start off the day with something just to kind of get me rolling, some either bulletproof coffee or tea, or you could be doing a shake that has some of the MCT or the exogenous ketones in it. And then I really don't eat an actual meal until midday, even sometimes early afternoon. And then I have a dinner usually. So 2 main meals, maybe a light starter snack. There are some days because of schedule and whatever, I have to maybe miss one of these meals. Usually I try not to miss dinner. But the idea here is that you're not living by a schedule as much as you're living by your body and what it feels like doing. So you should be getting to the point where you're not hungry all the time. You're not living for your next meal. I have known and had a number of patients where they actually realize that and admit that they're eating because they have a lunch break, or that's just what they do. They get up at 6, they put their coffee on, or they have their breakfast, they're having their snack bar because we've been told that's what we need to do. So take part of this is just slowing down and connect with your body and think before you eat, are you really hungry or are you just eating out of habit? Now, some of us will feel hungry. We will go through withdrawals from carbohydrates. We will have struggles not going for foods that we shouldn't be. And that is where some help is through taking exogenous ketones and or MCT oil or powder. So MCT, medium chain triglycerides, are the fats that are readily available as ketones, and they fill us up. They provide those ketones, and we get those benefits right away. Exogenous ketones are widely available. I'm a big fan of them. I just think they're a great tool for getting us started and getting us back and on track. They help reduce the withdrawals from carbs, and they help us avoid the ketogenic flu, which I won't go into all the details of that. And that also brings up another point, is that many people can't stick with the diet because of the severe withdrawal effects. They just can't do it consistently. But again, planning, you have to clear the house of the carbohydrates. You have to stop your pattern of driving by the drive up. You have to stop putting sweeteners in your coffee every day. If they're around, you're going to struggle, and it's going to be really, really tough. So I encourage you to get an accountability group. You're welcome to join our group, the Keto Club on Facebook, and also with my patients I support on the diet, we are able to do and offer that. I kind of forgot something. One is in this first basics of the ketogenic diet. I believe it's essential that after you've begun the process to actually check for ketone levels. If you don't, there's a good chance that you're not in the diet, and you need to adjust your macronutrients accordingly. That's best done through urine when you first start, and through blood or breath after you've been doing it for more than a week or so. You can always use blood and breath testing. We do offer blood testing here at my office. You can find fairly inexpensive breath and glucometers that also check ketones on the internet. Abbott Labs has a good one, the Precision Extra. And you need the test strips for both the glucose and the ketones. So you have to test. If you don't test, you may not be in ketosis. If you're not seeing results and you're not feeling better, there should be a noticeable improved brain clarity, alertness. You often feel warmer temperature-wise. And of course, it doesn't happen overnight, but you can see the changes in body composition. So you lose fat, you maintain and build muscle, which is why measurements are a little better than, that is, measuring width, waist, arms, thighs, is a better way to track than just on the scale, because the scale, you're going to maintain muscle and even gain muscle mass through a lot of the diet. So testing, essential. All right, so let me cover real quick time-restricted eating. I already mentioned that, the intermittent fasting. So what that does is we're trying to get you to eat, say, between 8 to 10 hours, an 8 to 10 hour window during the day. And that is why you'll see sometimes we kind of delay breakfast. You know, technically having coffee with cream or the bulletproof coffee, you are getting calories. And so really from the moment you start getting any calories, you want to go about 8 to 10 hours and then be done for the night. So what that does is it's keeping you in a ketogenic state longer. And so, for instance, if you delay breakfast, you are, we wake up from fasting, right, all night, and we call that breakfast for that reason. Let's try to break the fast a little bit later. Excuse me. And when you're in that ketogenic state, in the fasting state, is that you're burning your own fat longer. So you're getting the benefits of the ketones, you're losing fat stores, and therefore you can start feeding and eating during the day and kind of keep that fire burning and maintaining that. So intermittent fasting just means that you are delaying breakfast and or eating dinner, you know, earlier, and find start looking at how early you're eating, how late you're eating, and try to shrink that up to where you're eating. And studies have clearly shown that you can eat as many calories as you were before, but if you just shrink that window down, you will burn fat more effectively and see other health benefits as well. So it improves growth hormone, it improves healing, it improves hormone levels, it can reduce inflammation, and of course it can speed up fat loss and improve body composition much quicker. So let's see, troubleshooting. So again, non-responders. So many people have obviously embarked on this. So let me go through the 3 main reasons why people don't respond to the ketogenic diet. And I've kind of alluded to most of these, but number 1 is that you're not eating a ketogenic diet. It's kind of a duh, but if you're not eating a ketogenic diet, you're not going to see the success of a ketogenic diet. So just again, that's what I was discussing earlier, having the right macros, checking your ketone levels, and developing a pattern of reduced hours of eating and using intermittent fasting and feeling that you can actually do okay without a meal. Sometimes you've got to train yourself to be okay pushing through a hunger window and delaying eating. Again, don't feel like you have to do the timing part right away. If you aren't keto adapted, it's going to be hard. Some people get really shaky, they get nausea, they get lightheaded. People say, I have hypoglycemia, I have to eat all the time. Truth is that they're carb addicted and they have lost their endocrine, their hormone system control, blood sugar, such that they have to eat all these intervals just to keep things maintained. Anyway, that can change if you take exogenous ketones and MCT maybe once or twice a day. You should be able to get longer periods of time between your meals. Let's see. So yeah, anyway, getting the macros right, being consistent. And I guess, again, too much carbs, obviously too many carbohydrates isn't going to put you in a ketogenic diet. Too much protein and not enough fat. So I've seen a lot of that recently as to where people are literally not getting enough fat. The other way that can halt your success is being on a junk keto diet. And what I mean by that is that you're buying all the hype and the products and the bars and you're making fat bombs and you're trying to create the typical American junk food diet that is simply ketogenic. What happens when you do that is that even if you're using good sweeteners and you're putting them in your fat bombs, you're going to eat too much fat. You can't just sit there and pop fat bombs all day long and expect to be in ketosis. Now, some people whose satiety systems and hormone systems are working properly certainly can use those kinds of foods and enjoy them. But a lot of times it's simply driving the same problem, which is addictive eating patterns, sugar addiction, and excessive calorie intake, which leads me to an important point that I left off. I believe it's essential to track your diet for a minimum of a few days. And I was working on this app again last night because I wanted to share it with you all. And that is Chronometer. Where has it gone? So I would highly recommend that you get an app that is friendly to a ketogenic diet. Not all of them are. Chronometer allows you to set your macros, so you can kind of see that. So this was something I've used off and on, and I've recommended to patients because you can go under your settings. I can hit custom, and I can set it to either, they even have, I think, a keto template, but I actually just go in and set my, boy, that really has a hard time focusing. You probably won't be able to see this, but I have it, mine set to 15% protein, 10% carbs, and 75% fat. So point being, you just have to be able to set it. You need to also set it to net carbs. You do not want your fiber intake to count towards your carb intake, or you're going to be starting to restrict your vegetable intake. Net carbs is what you need to do. So you save those macros, and then you're able to just go in and quickly enter foods. So mine, I have this set from, let's see, go back to yesterday. Oh, why did it log me out? I have no idea what's going on there. So let's see, diary. Let's go to yesterday. I'll just spend a moment here to show this. But so this was yesterday's. I've entered this particular app. You just hit the plus sign. You can hit food and start to type it in, the name of it, and a lot of them will pop up. So there's a lot of database in here. It remembers what you did before. Really cool. You can hit the scanner button, and you can scan the barcode and get the food entered. And then really you want to estimate, really guesstimate your serving sizes. Just try to be as accurate as possible. Here is my target graph. Again, probably hard to see, but I have, with my macros, you want to see all these bars relatively even coming up to your total caloric intake for the day. So I was actually pretty close. I stayed under somewhat on my carbs. But if you're not seeing the fat high enough, if your carbs are too high or your protein's too high, then you can make adjustments. So after the course of just a few days, even a single day, you're going to see what you're doing wrong or what you're doing right, and you can adjust it accordingly. So this sets up when you first install it on your phone. Again, that's Chronometer, Chronometer. I will try to link that in the notes below. If you aren't, eating correctly, it's just not going to work. It's also just very useful. So after a few days of doing this, you begin to educate yourself what kind of things you want to do and what you don't want to do. So tracking, absolutely key. Those that succeed usually do some tracking. They test their ketones and they educate themselves and plan. So let's see. I'm going to say that I'm going to wrap up with one last topic briefly, and that is, if you are also having struggles getting it to work, another common problem is hormone imbalance. If you have a condition that you know about, or you may not even know about it, but if you have a hormone deficiency, so hypothyroidism, adrenal fatigue or adrenal insufficiency, if you have imbalances in your steroid sex hormones, your metabolism will be compromised. It'll be limited. And so it almost doesn't matter. So for instance, the extreme example is somebody who has undiagnosed hypothyroidism, their metabolism has the brakes on. And so it doesn't matter almost what you eat, you will not optimize your body. You won't burn fat. And you've probably known or maybe even experienced this, to where you're exercising, you're restricting your calories, and your body composition is not changing at all. There are two main causes of that. One is your diet. Number two is your hormone levels. And so you have got to obviously get the diet on track. More exercise isn't going to help you, and you need to get those hormones addressed. So one thing that's the foundation of my practice is that I do the proper testing to actually identify hormone imbalances, and then we get those on fire there and corrected to work properly for you. So another, besides thyroid problems, I guess the number one other common one is insulin resistance. So this is kind of a pre-diabetic state. If you have excess weight, if you've been overweight for a while, it is very common to see kind of a pre-diabetic state. We call that insulin resistance. It's also referred to as metabolic syndrome. And it's literally like the body is just like, okay, time out. I've got enough carbohydrates. I've stored fat for the last 25, 30, 40 years. And your cells stop reacting to insulin properly. Your blood sugar starts to climb, your cravings climb, and the process just goes round and round. You will not burn fat until you address that insulin resistance. And the best thing to do for that is to go low carb, high fat, with enhancing that insulin sensitivity and supporting any hormone imbalances. And so I've tried to kind of skim through a lot of the topics. I've mentioned the Keto Plan that I have available, which gives a 2-week meal guide. There's a timing chart. There is the option, of course, to definitely, it's optional, but you definitely want to get tested for your ketone levels when you begin. And then also consider, very much highly recommended that you track with a phone app, with your smartphone. Use Chronometer or any of them that will allow you to adjust your macronutrients correctly, and also use net carb in your totals. So let's see. I think I'm going to call that a wrap here on the live stream. So we will be convening again next week at 12:15. Actually, it's Thanksgiving, isn't it? So I actually plan on doing a quick login, and hey, it'll be a little bit short maybe and a little bit fun, but I think I'm going to give a tour of what we're cooking up and how you can enjoy the holidays eating ketogenic. I mean, I think that the Pilgrims actually, they did not have plates of mashed potatoes and stuffing and breads and desserts. I think that they had some of that, a few of those, but I think a lot of it was ketogenic. So I can enjoy it. My favorite Thanksgiving and holiday foods are actually quite keto compatible. So, all right. So please ask your questions. If you enjoyed the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Excuse me, losing my voice this morning. And what else? Yeah, nice thumbs up. But I would really love to hear your questions and comments, and we will continue the dialogue. So again, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.